Upon its introduction in the movie First Contact, the Borg sphere was instantly recognizable as a Borg ship for a single reason. It was a simple, symmetrical, geometric shape. At that point, we had the cube, so having a sphere made sense because it fit within the logic that Borg designs would be efficient, utilitarian, and completely devoid of individuality. But there's more to the ship, so let's dive into the details and take a closer look at the background, design, production models, and appearances of the Borg sphere. Compared to the Borg cube, the sphere is a secondary scout type of vessel. When we're introduced to it in First Contact, it only appears on screen for a few seconds, so it's important for the ship to be instantly recognizable. That was achieved with its simple, straightforward design. Essentially, it's a sphere that's been Borgified. Initially, the creators were concerned about similarities with the Death Star. They're both spheres, and the Star Wars vs. Star Trek comparison was much more relevant back in 1996 than it is today. So during the concept art phase, attempts were made to differentiate it from the Death Star, such as giving the hull this contrasting energy cloud section. Though in the end, the more is less approach won out with this minimalist design. They downplayed the Death Star similarities by partially covering up the torpedo ports with these irregular shapes. This is a continuation of the hull pattern theme, where the surface is comprised of layered, irregular shapes with deep insets. And now for a size comparison. The Borg sphere is 600 meters in diameter, which is comparable with the Enterprise E at 686 meters. The two ships should be fairly evenly matched, but the Enterprise destroys it with one torpedo volley. Here's what it looks like next to a Borg cube, which is roughly 5 times larger. And here's it compared with the Death Star, which is roughly 27 times larger. We see glimpses of the Borg sphere interiors during its appearances on Star Trek Voyager, though they're virtually identical to the interiors of Borg cubes. We can also assume that the interior environment is the same as other Borg vessels at 39.1 degrees Celsius and 92% humidity. In Fahrenheit, that's 102 degrees. So basically, the inside of a Borg ship is like being in Gainesville, Florida on a summer day.
Howdy, y'all!
The Borg sphere is one of the final physical studio models used on Star Trek. Since this is the smallest Borg ship seen at this point, the hull paneling is chunkier than that of the larger Borg cube. With the chunkier paneling, you also get deeper panel gaps, which implies that there's layers of spheres within spheres. You can also notice the irregular panel design more easily. The color palette employs a dark metallic blue and green lights instead of the dark gray used on the Borg cube. Again, this helped convey that this was a smaller vessel. I want to emphasize again that this ship only had a few shots to make its first impression, so all of these subtle visual cues immediately convey a brand new Borg ship design that's also instantly familiar. The completed studio model was 2 feet in diameter, which is slightly smaller than the 2.5 foot Borg cube that was also used in First Contact. When we next see the Borg sphere, it's on Star Trek Voyager as a CG model. Its TV debut is in the episode Drone, which incidentally is written by Brian Fuller, who was intended to be the original showrunner of Star Trek Discovery. In any case, this CG model is pretty accurate, especially for 1998. The Borg sphere in this episode is destroyed when it's piloted into a proto-nebula. The final on-screen appearance of the Borg sphere was in the 2003 Enterprise episode Regeneration. It appears as the wreckage of the original Borg sphere from First Contact, which is found in the Arctic Circle. Just a quick refresher, the Borg sphere from First Contact is from the year 2373. It travels back to the year 2063, where it's destroyed. The wreckage ends up in the Arctic Circle, where it's discovered in the year 2153. That wreckage also happens to include parts of an Enterprise E model. It's the front of the saucer section that was constructed for the ramming sequence in Star Trek Nemesis. A toy replica was made by Playmates for the First Contact line of toys. It's not that accurate to the actual studio model, but Star Trek toys are few and far between, so something's better than nothing. More recently, Eagle Moss released this miniature replica. It's even less detailed than the Playmates model, but again, something's better than nothing. In 2006, Paramount started auctioning off Star Trek props. This includes many of the physical models used, such as the Enterprises and Voyager. Basically, if there was anything they could make money from, it was going to be auctioned off here. Somehow, the Borg sphere wasn't included in this auction. which means Paramount lost it. So that's the video. Even though the ship received limited screen time, it's still one of the most easily identifiable alien ships in Star Trek history. It's a perfect illustration of the less is more approach. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to check out the other videos on this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.